Hey, y'all, what's up? It is Alchemy. Thank you so much for joining me. And in this conversation, we're going to finish up some talks about the oppositional energies. We will be talking about the oppositions between the third house and the ninth house. Now, I'm really excited about these particular oppositions. They actually are my nodal oppositions. I'm a Gemini North Node and Sagittarius South Node. The nodes are kind of like where you're headed. Kind of doesn't always feel comfortable when you think about the North Node aspect versus the South Node. You're a bit more familiar with it if you ascribe to the aspect of lifetimes. These are the lifetimes that you've gained and cultivated in this particular house or zodiac or realm, whatever you want to call it, right? This is what you've cultivated from lifetimes before. However, your opposing energy is going to be your North Node where you're kind of headed towards, right? Now, for me, it's interesting because I have a lot of Sagittarius in my chart. I'm a rising Sag, I got Jupiter in Sag, I got Uranus and Neptune in Sag. So for me to be like a Sag South Node is like, ugh. But at the same time, right? It's very comfortable for me to find the energy soothing. But what I honestly gravitate to a lot of times is Gemini's energy. I typically like to be around people who like to talk. I'm a Virgo too, so that helps. And then goddamn, my goddamn sun is in the ninth house too. So there's a lot of set like I said the vibe is there, right? But what I've noticed within my own personal self is that I tend to like just having conversations for the sake of having conversations, right? I do like to add and I'm the kind of person that if you do have a conversation with me, if something stands out, it's probably going to stick around with me a little bit more. I'm probably going to like let it run in my brain a little bit, like what they mean by that. Try to find the reason and the meaning in it, and it could have just been like I don't know why I said that. So it's a little tricky, right? But for the most part, I typically enjoy just the space of like third house where you can just converse and talk and it don't have to, you know, it could be a little bit of gossip. I like gossip channels, right? It could be a little tea, right? It could just be like in passing conversation. Those are some of the coolest moments, right? When you could just have a conversation with somebody and relate real quick and then just be on your way. It's just, can we just talk? Figure out where we going. Okay, come and talk to me. Okay. There's a lot of songs about communication, and it's because it's even said that communication rules a nation, right? But the third house and the ninth house conversation is really about that, right? Conversations really can lead you to different journeys. I remember there was a gentleman. His name was the Iron Man Walking, and he came in. I was selling cell phones at AT&T at the time. He came into the store. I was a young lady, younger than I am now, and he essentially he's an amputee. He was an amputee, and he was walking because the doctors told him that he could never walk, and he walked for all of the whole entire state of Florida. And he walked a few other cities, and he ended up in Mississippi where I was working at the time. And I just thought his story was so fascinating. And he was like, "Yeah, you gotta, get out here and live life. You don't want to be stuck behind this desk forever." And at the time, I hadn't really thought about life like that. I was so in the environment of like, let me rise the corporate ladder. Let me, show them I can do this, that, and I'll get favor, I'll get promoted. I was really into like that kind of space at the time. I've been about a bag, okay, but I was in that kind of space. But when he said that to me, I don't know, it just hit different. I was like, damn, maybe I should consider like what I actually want to do in my life and the things that are going to give me fulfillment. So it gave me like a higher perspective because I hadn't seen anyone really do that, and it was inspiring, right? So the ninth house does give you a lot of inspiration as well too. But we're going to talk about these oppositions. Very important oppositions, right? Some of my friends, I went through it too. We were given that college promise of going out and getting an education, okay? Because it's going to take you the journey to experience the life that you want. And a lot of us just ended up with student loan debt, okay? I have friends because I was a college dropout, baby. It just wasn't for me. I did it a little bit, and I was like, But we'll talk about that too because also once you go the distance, right, you do get the opportunity to inherit the gifts of going the distance, right? This is what the ninth house is about. You don't get the gifts that Jupiter's going to give you, which is Jupiter is like the benevolent giver. You don't get those gifts unless you commit to going through the experiences, right? Once you commit to going through the experiences, that's when Jupiter can give you the gift, right? Like if you've never tried sushi because you're scared, you don't know if you're gonna like it or not. But once you actually try it and experience it, right, you get the gift of knowing if you love it or if you hate it, right? But it's still a gift. Still a gift, right? Either way that you look at it. So we're going to talk about these oppositions when it comes to this house. Now, the third house. The third house is the house of communication. And I like that all the air energy kind of is represented by like two sides of the scale. Aquarius got the little squiggly, two squiggly lines, but it's really like a guy pouring like a pot of water, right? And then you have the twins here. So air is about communication. Communication requires an A and a B at least. It requires somebody having a conversation or something to say with a receiver on the other end, right? And when communication is really strong, there's a open exchange, right? It's not always like that. But for the most part, the ideal example here is that we can go here, we can get intel, we can socialize, we can be curious. My curiosity kind of takes over, okay, with the planet here. Mercury. And Mercury is a great observer. It's a great learner. What I love about Mercury is when we think about it, Mercury is always very close to the sun, so it sees the most of all the planets. This is this is why Mercury tends to kind of process a lot. It's got a lot of information. It's talking the most, right? It's seeing the most, okay? And because it's opposite to Jupiter, it's actually sending a lot of information and signals out that way, right? But the point of Mercury is that Mercury has a lot of information to process, a lot more information than the other planets, right? Venus is just processing the desires. Mars is just processing the force that we got to do and what we need to do to transform it, right? But Mercury has to process what it sees. You can see a lot, especially in the immediate environments that you are in, okay? Sometimes you're processing good shit. Sometimes you're talking about some terrible shit that happened, okay? But it's okay because this is just how this planet operates. It sees so much. It's got a lot of things going on. It's busy, okay? It moves the fastest, but it also retrogrades the most too. And it's because we oftentimes have to revisit the things that we're learning. We're revisiting communications. You ever had a conversation with somebody and then, like, the next day you still thinking about it? That's Mercury, right? Mercury is always in a way of processing the information that it has, okay? Now, on the day side, I'll say side of Mercury, which is where it's ruled in the third house, it's just communication. Gemini is a very flirtatious energy because it can just flirt around with what it's hearing. I heard over here they got this going on. Okay, I heard over here they got this going on, right? In fact, shout out to Geminis. I don't have any Gemini really in my chart outside of being a Gemini North Node, but I just love that they could just talk to anybody. Okay, I get a little nervous more often than not with the Virgo side of it because we're talking about Earth. And when you think about mutable Earth, it's a little shaky anyway. Anybody trying to like walk on sand, it moved too much. It ain't as sturdy as like walking on some solid ground. But nonetheless, right, it's necessary to. It's necessary. Virgo, I like to say Virgo's worry, so you don't have to. Okay. But the point is that here it's a lot more cooler because it's an air element. And air loves to be able to be like the breeze. Think about the breeze. When you're first going outside, it can go from here or there. You get hit with the wind from the north or the south, right? And that's how information is, or communications are. You can just hear from somebody out the blue. You weren't planning on it, right? Just came out of nowhere, right? And it's because communications are often in a flexible realm. It's in a mutable format. It's like that for a reason early on, so that we're able to just get the information. We don't have to worry about disseminating it yet, or making sure it's useful yet with Virgo side, right? It's just talking for the sake of talking. So I really do appreciate Gemini's energy. Now, look at my notes. Because we're learning from the immediate environment, these are things that are around us that we can kind of see going on. This is also the house of siblings. We learn a lot from our, family members. Sometimes we learn the right things to do. Sometimes you learn that, your sister's a bully and how to, manage those relationships, right? But we're learning here. We're learning how etiquette goes. We're learning that I can ask my parents a question. And my children be asking me questions. They be thinking, I'd be like, baby, I am not Google. My 7-year-old daughter at the time had the audacity to ask me why she couldn't see herself. 7 years old. And I said, I know she my child because only my child would ask some shit like this at 7. But she's like, Mama, how come I can't see myself? And stuff the hell out of me. I didn't know what to tell this baby. So I said, I'll get back to you on that, right? And I thought that she was going to let that rest. And she literally came back. But when she came back the second time, I was prepared. I had thought about it. I had philosophized. I went to my 9th house. And I said, baby, you can't see yourself because you're in your body. Right? And that's the thing about being an observer. You're in a space to observe, to see. You can see everything else in the world. You can see your family, you can see your friends, you can see everything else, but not yourself. The way we really see ourselves is literally through what we see around us, what we see in our environment. and that's deep. I ain't think I was gonna go that deep with this house, but let's go there, right? The environment can show you, like, if it's messy, you may have a little, your mind may be all over the place. If it's nice and pristine, but now here's the thing, though. Sometimes messy people, although it's messy, they know exactly where shit at too. So I don't want to say it's like a completely distorted energy or anything like that, right? It's just a little messy. I don't like a little mess. I'm alright with it, okay. But sometimes from our immediate environment, we can also see, um, how people interact with each other. And sometimes when I'm from the hood, I done seen y'all act a plumb down fool, okay? To the point where I ain't even come outside like that. I was just like, I don't even talk to my neighbors. And I'm not really like that. I'm really a social person, right? But in my environment, if your environment, which the next house after your environment is the fourth house, like feeling familiar and comfortable, right? If your environment, as you proceed, helps you feel comfortable, that's a really good thing. That's a good place to learn from. Versus if your environment is a little shaky, like, bitch, I'm trying to get up out here as soon as I can, okay? If it's like that, right? But nonetheless, right? We are learning, we are processing, we are seeing information, okay? And that's what the third house is about. It's about learning from those things that are around you, right? Sometimes you learn that you got gifts that'll help you get to that next step, right? But you're still learning because of what you see based off what's in your environment. Also learning too, I think is a really good aspect too of or understanding of like how observational energy works is like the ability to mimic. Like, I like to echo back in conversations. I work and I talk to people all the time, right? So a lot of times, because I'm in a communication kind of environment, I tend to echo back what I've heard, so the person who I'm communicating with understands that I follow them, right? That's another thing about communication. It makes us, be good mimics. Kids are great at this, okay? A kid would mimic you. That's why you got to be careful too about what you say around them. Because my one of my homeboys was telling me he was, he don't really have road rage like that, but somebody made him mad. He was like, bitch, and then his nephew was like, bitch, 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 like, because they hear us, and I guess this is the way he said it. He was just like, I like that word, Uncle. This in my vocabulary. He was like, don't say that shit. Go back to your mama and be thinking I be, over here talk about her ass. Who knows, right? Communication. And that's the thing. That's how it kind of works, right? But we'll go ahead and move it along. So by way of the oppositions, we're basically learning, right, how to get ourselves and take ourselves the distance in the outside world. So this is where we're going to end up going to the ninth house, right? I love that the archer has that bow, that arrow, right? Because it's really about the trajectory of where you're going. And in order to kind of, ain't nobody finna go no long distance, no on no trips or nothing like that without having a little bit of intel about where they're going. Even when I get in the car with somebody and I know we finna drive somewhere, where we going? We just gonna ride. Even if we just gonna ride and that's just the destination, I like to know where we're headed, right? So that intel helps us to kind of gauge the trajectory of where we're going. And the ninth house is the trajectory of where we're going. This is the ninth house. This is the mutable fire house, okay? And this is where fire meets the outside world. So the fire realm typically is more of an internal realm. The first house is you starting up with what you want to create. The fifth house is you truly generating it from an authentic place because you love it, right? The ninth house is where you actually get to experience it, okay? So this is pretty much the ninth house of experiences. And our experiences have a lot to do with what we've learned, along the way. Sometimes you can engage in an experience, and because of some things that you've learned, maybe that allowed you to be free during your experiences, or maybe it allowed you to be a bit more restricted, so you didn't really feel the experiences the way you want to because you had ideas or preconceived thoughts about the experiences before it occurred, right? This is why these energies are opposite, right? But again, we're going to talk about the alchemy in a second and bring it together to see how it works together, right? But the point is, going the distance, traveling, it can feel foreign, and no matter how much information you've gathered and intel that you've gathered, once you go on that experience is that experience. And it also has the right to be very fluid and mutable and change up on that ass, okay? Plans do change, right? Trajectories do change, just like what we learn in the communications that we get from that as well. But here we're trying to get a higher understanding as well, right? So where Gemini was just interested in getting intel because it sits so close to the sun, the ninth house with Jupiter here is trying to be a bit more wise, right? Where the information and the intel that we did receive from Libro, right? Libro, Mercury was getting all that data out there, you know what I'm saying? Jupiter is here and it's one of the biggest stars, right? It's one of the biggest planets. Jupiter got big, okay, because it went through things, because it went through experiences. And when it went through those experiences, right, it's like I'm almost like reading a book about Holland. You can read as much as you want to about Holland, but until you actually go to Holland to experience the culture, to experience what the food is like, what the weather is like, you know, what the people are like, right? You really don't know it until you go through it. And that's kind of what Jupiter is saying, right? I went through some shit. I didn't get this big by staying at the house or hanging out close to the sun. The sun is already bright enough, you know what I'm saying? It gets the attention and shine that it wants, right? The way I shine at night is because I've went through these experiences, and these experiences have helped cultivate me into my higher understanding of things, right? So now because I'm in Holland, I have a higher understanding of why people do the things that they do. I read that they did this, right? Now that I'm experiencing it, it makes more sense. And this is where things just make more sense to us, right? Based off of our experiences that we have. So, when it comes to experience, it's the wisest teacher. I like to say Mercury definitely is here for you to observe and learn, and we do learn a lot, but experience is the wisest teacher. This is often why too. Shout out to my peers. A lot of us were given that college promise. You know, we were told that if you go get that 4-year degree, don't fuck around and get a master's or a doctorate, you know? But shit, I wasn't trying to go to school like that. I took the Kanye route and I dropped out, baby. Shout out to the college dropouts, okay? It just wasn't for me. Now, with that being said, though, right? When it comes to applying for certain jobs, I already know. Are y'all looking for a degree? I already know. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't inherit the gifts, the blessings that Jupiter gives to those who did go that route, right? But here's the caveat. A lot of people went to school, right? Got the degree just for companies to be like, well, where's your experience? Happened to a lot of my friends. Happened to a lot of them. I get friends who have degrees who don't actually even work in their fields. And sometimes too, you might get the degree, work in the field, fuck around and find out, I can't stand this. Ask a teacher. Ask a teacher if they pray to get up out that classroom. Shout out to the ones who are staying, baby. Okay, that's actually what I wanted to do. I wanted to go to school and teach, and it's funny that I'm, doing what I'm doing now because I got so removed from that life, and it just became about life and Monday and the grind and stuff like that. That to be doing this is just really cool and kind of on point with my vibes and stuff like that, because I like to learn, and then I like to share the information that I learn. I love to be in areas where I can learn from others and all that stuff, right? But nonetheless, right, there are people who went to pay to get their degrees and got grants and all that stuff and are in that field, and because the field is so toxic and difficult and the experiences are just not giving what they thought it would give, they like, let me change directions, right? But that's the thing, and again, that's the gift and the curse that you kind of get with Jupiter. There is a blessing, right? You got the gift to experience, but the gift doesn't always add up to what you wanted it to be in the end. And this is where we get to the alchemy, okay? Because when we take, I ain't show a lot of the cards for Sagittarius, but y'all get it, right? Y'all follow me. But let's say we take the alchemy from the energy, right? Let's say we take the 3rd house, add that with the 9th house. Boom. We get to the 12th house, okay? Now, the 12th house is the house of hardships, but it's really about what's coming behind the veil, right? When you think about it, it's a 12-step process to astrology, right? First step is the first house is what the snapshot is, whatever you're getting yourself into, but you don't really know what's going to happen until you get to the end. But a big part of what helps you get to the end, right, of that dream or beautiful nightmare is the experiences that you had. And then what you learned along the way. And the thing is too, right? Because this is the house of unveilings. What gets unveiled in the end is based off what you learn, right? And as you learn things, the unveiling kind of comes down, right? You see what I'm saying? And so that's the energy of the 12th house, right? It's like when you're watching a movie, you don't really know what's going to happen until the end. You kind of, can have an idea based off what the characters are doing and all that stuff, right? But what truly happens in the end, you got to commit to the experience of going from the, all the way to experience of what the actual show is about, but you also are learning. And the learning added with culminating with the experience is what gets us to the 12th house. It's what gets us to completion. So again, my friends who got the degrees, right? Third house, went through the experience of getting that job. Ninth house, found out in the end whether it was worth it or not. And for a lot of people, it was. For a lot of people, it is. Some people realize that, dream got a little deferred along the way, right? But the point is, this is the 12th house. Now, here we got Pisces. I ain't got my Pisces card out, but it's okay. We can just talk about Pisces, right? Pisces is mutable water. And if you're familiar enough, it's the two fish going in opposite directions, right? One fish representing the cycle that you went through, and then the other fish showing the promise that you can go a different way if you decide to, right? But tethered together, those experiences are still a part of you, which is why Jupiter is the ruler of the 12th house. Now, he got sweet brother Noomsick, Neptune, okay, who's here as well. Now, bro is here because this is about dreams, illusions, visions, the inspiration. And sometimes you can't get to the dream unless you go through the experiences, right? Once you start to go towards your dreams, then it may even help enhance whether or not those experiences are truly for you. Or if you just want to go, because all cycles repeat them. I ain't gonna say all cycles repeat, right? But cycles are cycles. As they close, a new one opens up. So in the end, this may be where you decide that you want to go in a different direction, based off the alchemy that's here, right? Based off your dreams, based off the, illusions, based off deceptions. Just ultimately what you're receiving from this realm. And it can be a very confusing thing, right? Because you might realize yeah, I love parts of the classroom. Yeah, I love parts of teaching, but I absolutely hate the administration part. I absolutely hate that I got to do this and these standardized tests and these, issues that I deal with sometimes the parents and, there are aspects about the job that you love and hate, so it's a very confusing house, right? But Spirit is saying in the end, you get to feel how you want to feel. If the feeling fluctuates, that's okay. You are absolutely allowed that space because this was your experience, okay? And your experience deserves the process as well to be in your feelings and let it go either way, okay? So regardless of this alchemy, we're always dealing with fluidity. We're always dealing with fluidity when it comes to what we learn, what we experience in our dreams. Those things are ever changing. Now, some dreams don't change, and you'll realize that too, right? Sometimes the approach to the dream is what changes, Sometimes the things that you were scared of, or because the ninth house does have to deal with a little bit of, not per se fear, but it is like that higher understanding that comes along the way with once you experience things. And maybe you were so afraid of what was to come in the end, but then when you actually went through the experience, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad, right? And these are the energies that we see often when it comes to these alchemies and these houses, right? Now, so we talked about the alchemy, right? What you learn affects how you experience things, and overall what gets unveiled in the end based off that process, right? Because we don't know how things are going to end until we get to the end. But let's just say, right, the experience that you plan on taking in the outside world based off what you learn just didn't add up. When we take, of course, 3 away from 9, we always get back to 6. So it doesn't matter about the alchemy, right? When it comes to the addition, when shit don't add up, it's always going to make you worry. It's always going to make you reconsider if what you were learning or what you really, observed from your immediate environment, did it really pay off when it came to your experiences, right? You can't take the nigga out the hood. Or what they say, you can take him out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the nigga. You can't make a whole housewife, all those kind of things, right? If you learn certain things that just ultimately are impacting how you're experiencing life, right? And those things that you're learning aren't really adding up and, really getting you to that trajectory, it's going to make you go to the 6th house, go back to that drawing board to really see if this is worth it, if it's really supportive of my well-being. Is it something I should care about? Should I just remeditate on this and try to, figure this out again because something isn't adding up, right? But when we can get these alchemies to work for us, right, what we learn within that environment really can impact our experiences and take us to a higher learning so that we get the gifts and ultimately what's due to us in the end, that unveiling, that happy ending, Now, some stories have happy endings. Some stories don't, right? But ultimately, it's really about the fact that you experienced it and that you're here to experience it. And that's one of the true gifts that Jupiter is here to show us. But I think that's really all I got for this conversation, y'all. I didn't want to make this video too long. I hope that some of that made sense. I hope that you enjoyed the content. And if you did, please come back. We'll do some more of these conversations. I don't want to make this video too long, but thank you for taking the time, and I will see you next time. Y'all take care. Bye.